Welcome back to Gearwire.com. I'm Bill Holland, and I'm here with Drew Craig.
Hello, hello.
And the most hated man in America, Britton.
Hello.
And this is Crosstalk, number 36. So, given that, let's move on to our first segment, Viewer Mail. Our first letter is from Danny C. from Oak Park, Illinois. He says, I've got a computer to buy to make for my home studio, and I want to buy the best computer for my money. I've got $1,500 to spend and want to know what the Crosstalk crew uses for DAWs and what advice they have on buying a new system. Well, Danny, $1,500 is not a lot of money. So what are you thinking, Drew?
Well, learn from my bad experiences. I have an HP right now. It's working okay. But you may want to just go ahead and buy yourself a Mac, an Apple. That's my suggestion. You know, I mean, it's obviously, if that's your total budget, you also have to filter in so many other things, like, you know, obviously your audio card, microphones, etc. But if that's your budget just for a computer, I would say just buy a Macintosh.
Now, the only thing about that, though, is, okay, $1,500, I mean, how much is a Mac these days? A MacBook, I believe, if you go on the website and get the educational discount, it ran me about $1,300, I think, after all is said and done, and that's like with the lowest specs possible. I mean, granted, that's 2 gig of RAM, but like, everything else was pretty low.
Depending on what you're trying to do, that should be enough. You know what I mean? Like computers are today, in my opinion, are starting to exceed what you need them to do, unless of course you're tracking like 48 tracks, you know, doing outrageously large projects. But for like a normal home studio setup, most computers are kind of getting to that point where it's like good enough, in my opinion.
But he only has $1,500, so what we'd have left is $100 to $200 for a DAW. So what's he going to do? Well, I mean, granted, we talked to Cobra Starship, and they recorded their album on freaking, what was it, GarageBand, which you can do. I mean, it's 24
whatever works.
192. I mean, they're releasing it on Atlantic, but still, you know.
Whatever works, you know. I definitely do recommend going Macintosh over, you know, a Windows machine any day of the week. Unless you really know Windows. If you're able to know Windows, you can save yourself a lot of money, but you do have to go into the OS and really tweak things and make sure everything's set up properly with the right service packs and all that shit so that it works properly. That's the bottom line. If you're not willing, if you're not comfortable doing that, the easy solution is just buying a Macintosh computer.
Well, and I use a PC at home, but honestly, I'm converting over to Mac for the same reason. I built PCs because it was cheaper, but in the long run,
save yourself a lot of money.
Well, you waste time. That's the problem. Your time is money, and that, you know, the few $100s you may save on a PC is actually all spent tweaking the damn thing to work right with audio. You know, my friend's a web designer, so he's going like, oh, well, PC this, and I love PCs for web stuff. But for audio or video, you pretty much have to go with a Mac because they're made to run that way. They're designed for that. PCs are not designed for that. Yeah. PCs, unless you really want to sit there and tweak, and like that's great if you have that kind of time, it's fine. But for audio, really, it's better to go with a Mac just because it already works that way.
Especially if your budget's $1,500, you can afford it.
Exactly.
If your budget's a lot lower, I suggest learning a lot about Windows.
Now just remember, any OS is going to have its issues. I've seen both Pro Tools crash on Windows and Mac computers. It doesn't really matter. What you need to worry about is the specs. Like you have the front side bus, the reason why it's important is it's your pipeline basically. It's how much information and how fast it'll travel down through, you know, a pipe. I know it sounds redundant, but you know what I mean? It's like how much width you have is how much speed you have. RAM is always important because you want to do onboard processing a lot of the times. It's also how fast, you know, things like your Windows will construct images and things like that, which is important. Like waveform construction happens because your RAM has to, you know, shell that out and then refill really fast. Processors are important as well too. You can get a quad computer for cheaper for Windows and all that stuff. You know, it's just you've got to be wary that you're either way when you're doing audio or video, you're going to be running a bare bones system. You don't really want to be surfing the internet too much on the thing, you know, and all these other issues. So all the home pornography has got to be put on like a separate computer. All right.
That's great advice right there.
That's fantastic. Yeah, save that for like that'll be your e-machine. You can save your e-machine for the pornography. But all right. Well, moving on. Number 2. You guys mentioned a little bit about reamping in episode 34. What's reamping? How do you do it?
It's when you take a signal, maybe like you had a DI or something else, and you weren't really satisfied with the original cut of the sound, like the Marshall JCM 800 just wasn't cutting through. You actually take the signal and you run it out through a board, set a speaker up, all right, like an amp. You run the input of the amp. Like you step it down, of course, so it's guitar level. So take the level, run it into the input of the amp, and then the output, you either do like a real speaker, a 4x12, if you're lucky enough to have a real room, or you can do something what they call is just reamping the amp. So you get an actual amp tone, but you record DI straight into the DAW or the tape machine. So you won't get any speaker, but it gives you a lot hotter signal.
Right.
And you don't have as much coloration through the microphones, and that's good to actually blend things. So that's how you reamp something. There's also, Marshalls now make a lot of things with speaker emulation, which is basically like a three-prong, XLR out that can go directly into a board.
Right. Cool. Okay, cool. Well, let's moving on.
I mean, it was, yeah. There's no, it's what it is.
It is what it is,
Now, if you want to talk about awesome things you can do with a speaker and a microphone, it's a whole nother story.
That's another whole other ball of wax. Okay, hey guys, how much guitar amp is too much for a small club? I want to play something I can play lead on that won't blow the house down in a 4-piece playing small stages. Any advice? Dave from St. Louis.
Dave, there's many variables here. For one, you may want to consider getting a wireless system just so you can walk around the room. Listen to your sound. Generally, the biggest problem for me is not having enough. If you buy like a really, really, really loud amp, you can always turn it down a little bit. But probably 30 to 50 watts is what you're going for, tube amp-wise. Solid state, maybe 50 to 100. Anything over that is probably going to be too much. What do you think, Britton?
Just because I play a lot of guitar too. I mean, like I do that stuff. I'm actually against wireless systems altogether.
Oh, okay.
I think they're really horrible because they digitize the signal and then they send it back out. So you lose actually a lot of your bottom end scoop. And when you're playing stuff that's kind of heavier, you need that scoop so you get that bottom end. Okay. So I say stick to cables. I don't care how long the run is.
That being said, get a very long guitar cable.
Yeah.
And wander about the room. Listen. That's the best thing you can do is listen to your sound. Now,
well, especially it's a small club too, so really wireless doesn't factor in. I mean, I've seen wireless go out on big concert venue, stadiums.
That makes sense because like you're also dealing with a lot of like other factors. I mean, like most of those guys who are doing like like
well, you don't want to go cable chasing.
Yeah,
in the middle of a performance.
Yeah, and then bands like Slayer, like they wire up their like 6 Marshalls so and you can like just get all the tone that you ever wanted.
Yeah.
So when you're traveling around with a single amplifier for a club, depending on the venue, like if you're doing any sort of like, if you're like, I'm a heavy rock musician, well, get ahead and get a cab because you'll save yourself a lot of problems in the end because, trust me, a 4x10 combo amp is not fun to carry upstairs.
Oh, right.
Hell no.
No.
But like, combo amps are cool, they're cheaper, and that you can get good tone out of them, like a Fender Twin, something like that. But just realize that like, volume is the name of the game at this point. The important thing is master volume for you. Small club guys need master volume. They don't need, it doesn't matter about the watts. You can get a 120 watt tube head. Everything else, as long as it's master volume, you can turn it down to whatever setting he wants to get the crunch. That's why you stay away from like non-master volume Marshalls because like the only way you make them sound good is if you turn them up. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
But like that Vox AC15 is good for a small club if you're playing like
For those of you who can't see it, there's a Vox AC15 right off screen.
Sorry, I'm very visual, so I reference everything.
That's all right, man.
It's a 15 watt tube amp, so it's going to be loud. It's not a single-ended, which I know all you nerds will know what I'm talking about. All right, so the wattage, the 15 watts isn't as loud as you would like it to be, but it will be loud enough for pop rock trios, not like rock, but like like a Beatles cover band, a jazz trio, or a hot house blues kind of thing. Okay. If you want 30 watts, you can get it like AC30 will be as loud. There isn't much of a difference between like a 30 and a 50 watt amp. The loudness is going to get loud. Like I had a 30 watt AC30, and I also have a, Music Man HD 130, which is 130 watts that I actually do the triode, so I step it down to 60 watts because it's still massively loud. And I have a 40 watt amp peg, and they all sound, like in that wattage range, they all get just as loud as each other.
Oh yeah,
loud as hell.
Yeah, and you're just so it's just like that's not a factor. Now the difference between 50 and 100, or 150 or 120, that's paramount. But you're also driving more speakers.
Sure.
So don't worry about that stuff. Just really look at your tubes, like how much what kind of tubes you want, what kind of you need to master volume. And how often you want to carry it up and down stairs.
And of course, the one thing that we didn't mention is, and I'm assuming because it's a small venue, you're not using a sound system. You know what I mean? But obviously, if you do have a sound guy and you're using a sound system, then all you really are concerned about is stage volume, meaning you just have to hear yourself and let the sound guy do the work. You know what I mean? So
no, it's paramount.
You got a sound guy, it's easy. You know, you don't really need that loud of an amp. You just need something that you can hear yourself out of, and that's really it.
Yeah, see, I like personally playing smaller venues because I have the option of not using PA. And I prefer, personally for me, like the way I like playing my music is I want it as dirty as humanly possible right now. Like I'm really interested in this aesthetic. I do a lot of things just because I like aesthetics of things.
Well, yeah.
And so I want my amps to sound like my amps to the people in the club. So I actually ask people not to mic my amps and stuff and just turn it up as loud as it can go so they can hear it, which is really interesting for small venues when you got 40 or 50 people freaking out. But if I have to play a larger club, I know I'm going to have my stuff mic'd, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know? So just keep wary of that sort of stuff. You know, what are you going for as well? Like, what kind of sound?
Well, there's that, too. I mean, yeah, it depends on what I mean, I've seen people run, you could run a guitar through a bass amp if you wanted to sound
muffled.
Well,
I mean,
not that you would go for that, but I'm saying that, you know what I'm saying? Like,
well, technically, there's not much of a difference between, tube amps aren't as different as you think. It's actually just in terms of wattage.
Stronger, right?
Yeah. Like a bass tube amp, like a Sun 300T, like is the same as a Bassman 300T, which these are bass amps, but they actually sound great for guitar.
Yeah. Well, it takes more power to run the lower frequencies, right?
Yeah, but you get you know that punch, and like if you're playing guitar, you can imagine like really good high-end response with a nice tight punchy bass response from your lower strings.
Especially like rhythm guitar?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. But then again, you know, you can take a high watt DR103 and drive it through an Ampeg 4x10, and it'll sound freaking awesome. So, like, that's a guitar head. It doesn't really matter. The bass guitar thing, it's like stringed instruments, keyboards, things like that. You can all run them through amps. It's just like you got to be wary of like what kind of response that you need. So you actually need to look at your speaker configuration more. Like, I run 2 12s and 4 10s right now. I'm going to get 2 15s because I want more low-end response, but I don't need as much high-end response because those 4 10s move really fast.
Right.
So I got really punchy, like, shrill overtones right there, and those 12 inches just drive at a nice constant pace. So that's something that you got to look at.
Interesting.
Cool. All right, moving on. Do we have any more questions? Oh, this one's... I'm going to forward this one to you, Britton.
What?
This is from James from Springfield, Missouri. Thanks for sending this in, James. I see people in the guitar shop buying guitars looking up and down the neck, holding the air like they're looking through a telescope.
I'm not answering that fucking question, dude.
True.
Essentially looking at the curve of the neck, seeing if it's warped.
Can you show us what they're talking about? Like point that right at the camera, just show them.
Well, if you look right down the neck, you guys probably won't be able to see it at home, but there should be just a very slight concave curve to the neck.
That's if they round out the frets, though.
That's true. Mine's pretty straight, actually.
And there's also a radial fretboard, which can also screw things up. Actually, really, when you do that, you're looking at the straightness of the neck.
Right.
See, if you look at this, look at my hand right quick, all right? I have to answer this. When your guitar goes like that, your neck is out of, you know, it's bent.
Right.
So some notes will buzz and other will. And that's why you have truss rods, is to tweak the neck. So like when you look down the fretboard, you can see whether it's curving a certain way at a certain point in the neck. And the other thing that they're looking for is fret leveling. All the frets should seem level, and not one is higher than the other.
If you get one fret that's higher, all the preceding frets will buzz, most likely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on. We are going to talk today about various pieces of gear that everybody here carries with them almost at all times when they're doing a gig, be it doing live sound or playing a gig or recording. So we're going to start with Britton. Britton, you have the microphone that will save my ass and the world when I need it to.
Probably has saved the musical world a couple of times. This microphone is used on pretty much, like, people always ask me, like, you know, dude, what's the first mic I should get? I just got, like, an Inbox 2, you know what I mean? And, like, I want to start recording stuff. What's the first mic I should get? And tell them to either get, depending on what they're really doing, get an SM57 or an SM58. There's not much difference, actually, except for the cardioid pattern because of the ball. One's more tailored towards vocals, but you can do anything with either of them in a hard-up sort of situation. The reason why we're talking about the SM57, though, is because, honestly, it does have a wider range of uses. It's used on everything from snares, toms, bass cabs, guitar cabs. I've seen guys use them for vocals. This is like an all-around essential mic for studios, for live, for everybody. Like everybody needs to have this microphone if you're messing around with any sort of, you know, performance application when you're not playing. I mean,
right.
You know what I mean? So that's why it's so paramount. That's why it's like, I don't necessarily carry it with me everywhere, but I expect to see this microphone everywhere I go.
Right.
Like I can literally walk into any studio across America and to any live sound venue from any size, and they will have this motherfucking microphone. Like it's like but I've seen guys nail down, you know, everything. Like this mic can take more abuse than a wife in an abusive relationship.
Is that physically or on a recording end?
Any way you want to look at that one, man.
I think a 58 will actually take a little bit more.
I was ignoring
the nice thing about a 58 is, you know, you can hit somebody with it, and you know it won't knock them out, but it'll definitely let them know who's boss.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so.
No, I mean, but this mic literally does a lot of stuff.
It's true. Those things.
This is where all of the magic happens with a microphone. All right. Right here is like the actual element. You know what I mean? That the reason why it's called dynamic is it's a magnetic, and the diaphragm moves like the voice coil.
Kind of like a mini speaker, sort of, right?
Yeah, and
you could use a
wired
speaker if you really
reverse.
wanted to.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to sit there and jam out to your iPod, but you wouldn't want to use it for that.
I've used telephone receivers for a lot of stuff, like to do.
I've used headphones for microphones before when we've needed one of, you know,
Interesting
last-ditch
frequency
situation.
response using different stuff like that.
There's a couple of bands that actually use
The Beatles
use telephone mics as opposed to real microphones for their vocals now, because they want to sit in the mix a little bit better and to interact as more of an instrument. It's neither here nor there. All right, but
that's cool.
There's a transformer mod you can do. It's right here. You can actually take out the transformer. It's where the glue. See the glue?
Oh, nice.
The glue right here under there. You will void the warranty on the microphone. All right. But there's a cool transformerless mod that you can do. You can get better response out of it. A lot of people say I'm kind of neither here nor there on it. It's just a cool mod to do if you're really interested in getting it. If you got like 5 of these lying around.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you have like a bunch of them lying around, it wouldn't hurt to pull one and try it.
Yeah. So that's basically the inner workings of this microphone. Is so simple. That's why it's so sturdy. Is that like literally you got your element that moves, then you got the energy part, and then you literally have just like transformer, and then
awesome.
I mean, it's just so simple. So that's why this is being specialed right now, is because like it's literally like this mic is literally everywhere. So there.
All right.
So anyway, this is
this guy right here.
This is the Digitech Jam Man.
close up
now
on this.
let me explain something first.
Okay.
Before we even go into this, this is a digital recording pedal. It basically loops phrases that you can create. There's a lot of these on the market. I'm going to be talking about a few different ones. I've owned several of them.
That's pretty sweet.
But first and foremost, kind of branching off of the previous podcast we've done with the analog versus digital debate and all this, this being a digital piece, there's no analog pieces that offer what this digital piece can do. And that's kind of a very important topic, is that the functionality of digital is no more matched by analog at all. In other words, there's tape delays and stuff like that, but in order to get different length delays, you'd have to change the length of the tape, and for full loops, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's kind of the thing about a tape echo. I'm sorry.
I'll say, go ahead, do what you gotta do.
Tape echoes and tape delays, they don't serve the same functional purpose as this.
Exactly.
Actually.
I'm saying that there's no analog piece that really does.
No, I mean, I own a RC20 XL, and I know it's digital, and I also have a digital delay, but those two things are very different than you got to understand, there's things where there's digital realm, modeling and stuff like that, where you're dealing with something that has, a counterpart to it that
is analog,
and it has, and there's a debate about that sort of thing. It's like a USB guitar has a counterpart that has been established for such a long time. Like a digital delay, the reason why it's so accepted is because the thing is it doesn't really have much to do with affecting the analog signal as much as how you get the delay, which makes it a little more digital sounding. It creates a harsher signal. If you look at, just go literally Wikipedia digital delay, and it'll explain the way that it makes it, because the delay line actually happens through a digital process as opposed to what an analog delay does, which is actually delays the signal and then resends it out. Now, a tape delay, which is the simplest of the delays, all right, is actually literally 3 tape heads,
Sure.
And then, the record and the repro and all that stuff will, create a delayed effect, all right, or an echo. So that's why there's these different things, and that's why there's delays. This is not a delay. You know what I mean? Like, that's why tape delays, sorry, are not loopers. You can create loops out of the tape. Like if you hold the record time and you create a really long delay out of it. But that's not necessarily that's not a loop. That's a loop player.
That's exactly my point. There's no analog devices that offer what this can offer.
Yeah, I'm just kind of clarifying everybody.
Well, and I'm curious too. I mean, I see you have USB on here. You have a 1/4 inch out. Now, the USB, is that a feed to, like, if you want this to be an input device, it'll operate that way?
You can get your loops into your computer. It also has a smart media card, so you can do that option as well.
Okay.
I'm a guitar teacher, so I have this for my lessons, and I'll be working with a student, lay down a loop for us to work on, solo over.
Right.
And then at the end of the lesson, I can just pop out the smart media card or plug in the USB, get it into my computer, and email it to them. So it's a really, I mean,
but now you also have the analog out.
Sure.
So you could actually record this. I mean, but it won't be being sent to the computer as ones and zeros. It'll be being sent as an analog signal from a digital device.
Sure, yeah.
Right. Well, because you're saying as audio through.
Yeah.
All right, I got to kind of clarify, because I know a lot of people are getting really hung up on this whole, like, digital versus analog
I'm aware
thing.
of that.
Yeah, like, and like I know, like, that's why it's kind of a point of contention. With things like pedals and application devices, we're looking at very different things. Like, there's the utilitarian point of view of where, like, and you actually have to rely on this heavily. I can't afford, and not anybody really can really afford to be a purist in any sense of the word about analog. You know what I mean? Like, everything has a digital element. Like, you look at your whammy, it has a digital element. Where the crux of that argument has to do is modeling and DAWs. I mean, if you want to talk to Steve Albini, he'll kind of tell you.
Somebody posted that link on the site on the complete crosstalk from the last episode.
You have to kind of take this into account right now. Is that, like, by no means is because Big Black used a digital drum machine. You know, his original band used a digital drum machine instead of a drummer. I mean, but he says that analog is better than digital, and no, it's not analog is better than digital always. It's analog recording is better than digital recording because of a certain set number of factors that I think we can talk about later.
Right.
And we can really get into that whole thing, just like we kind of touched into the modeling sort of thing.
Yeah.
But there's a whole, it's an ideology and a principle. And that's like, those sets of rules have to do with the recording environment.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. We're talking about performance tools that enhance your creativity at this point in time.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the point.
And that's the difference between what we're talking about.
And like with this unit, I can come to a gig, and let me tell you, this unit right here, I mean, they cost what, $200-300, something like that.
300.
This unit has made me an extra $200 in a night, because what I do is I book gigs, which I normally would do like a duo or a trio, which would pay me, you know, in between $100-200 a set, play 3 sets. But with this machine, I can do it all by myself. So I don't have to pay a bass player. I don't have to pay a drummer. Sorry, guys. I'd rather have all the money for myself. I'm just going to be honest. And with this unit, I can record up to 6 hours of audio, have all my backups ready to go. And I don't do the full man band thing. Like, I don't have drums behind me. I just record guitar loops and play over them. You know, jazz standards, stuff like that. You know, kind of atmospheric, casual stuff. And, you know, it's a really, really great way to enhance the sound.
See, personally for me, I use mine as a performance tool with a drummer and a bass player, where I'm like, if I need to go, like I'll record, because since we're a 3-piece, I record the line and then I need to do something else. Or I record the line and I need to go play a synthesizer. Like, I literally use it in a real-time fashion, which is really hard to do because, like, you know, loops and drummers don't always sync up all the time. So you get really cool things that, like, mistakes that come out of it. But, like, it's not a replacement for a band or anything like that. I don't want to kind of like get on this whole like thing where like people, this is totally, but like look at the back of it. It has mic input. There's vocalists that use this to record their harmonies.
Backups.
Yeah, you know, everything else, or they want to do.
There's a million applications for a piece like this, you know. I used it to make more money on jazz gigs. You know, you could use it virtually for anything. Now, like I mentioned, there's a lot of other kinds out there. There's the RC20XL, which is a roll-in piece. I owned one for several years. You got one right now. Great unit. I bought mine a long time ago. I dropped it on concrete floors before. It just took a beating. This unit, I haven't dropped it yet. I'm not sure. It's a Digitech, so if it's anything like any other Digitech piece, it's going to break. But the Roland's out there. Now, the best sounding one I've come across is the Boomerang. I've actually set all 3 of these beside each other and listened to each one, and the Boomerang did sound the best. The downside with Boomerang, you can't store anything. So for like the loops on the spot application, perfect. But for me, being able to show up with 2 hours worth of pre-recorded material, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like that. This is definitely for that kind of the guys who sit there on the right and they're like, you know, we got an album recorded. We got 3 guitar parts and like 1 guitarist. Get them the looper, record all that stuff in there, and then during the part you hit this play button, and all 3 are doing the harmonized solo, and then you stop, and then you go back into the part.
You know, it might be kind of wicked. Maybe I'm kind of pushing it here, but some sort of, well, this will just kind of turn it into a regular sampler at this point, but some sort of MIDI in, you know, so it could be controlled by an external device or a computer. I mean, so you could like make loops live. Your drummer could have the click, and everything would be synced up. You know what I mean?
And I mean, like they do make those sort of things actually already. I mean, you could get the Roland SP555, which has MIDI in, and then you can also record in real time. It'd be good for somebody who needs something tabletop though, or you can start. You can punch in and out with the foot switch actually as well, an external foot switch. There's also the RC50 XL, which is the answer to everybody.
That thing's huge.
That has MIDI in and out.
Oh, it does. Okay, well, there you go.
There we go.
All right, that has MIDI in and out. That has everything that you could probably possibly want out of a. It's like the monster.
The mother of all.
Yeah, and then there's the Gibson Echoplex.
That thing's crazy.
It's supposed to be kind of like a recall to the, you know, to the old tape delays of yesteryear. But instead it's now just a very, very complex delay and looping device. And that thing is insane. And it doesn't work that well unless you have the foot switch.
You brought your SM57 right here. You took it apart, showed us the mods you can make with it, explained that this is the mic that will save your life. And we've talked about the one-man jam. Or is it the man jam? Or
the jam man.
Jam man.
A little less dyslexic. Maybe.
Okay.
But yeah, we're going to be doing a little video of the jam man in the next crosstalk.
I need coffee. I'm sorry. Okay.
You know, so what I'm going to do is just loop a couple of jazz style chords.
You're going to loop some jazz style chords.
And try and refrain from using any copywritten music.
Man jam.
Man jamma.
Jamma man, a man, a fan,
man jamma jam man.
Banana rama, cama, hana.
What about Ram Jam?
Ram blam.
Guys, good luck with that.
Okay. Anyway, so you're going to talk about that, and you're going to play on a little bit of some jamming for us.
Yeah, we'll play through the AC-15, see if we can't get it to sound decent.
Awesome. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my gear in the next episode, episode 37. I'm going to be talking about the unlikely use I came across of the BCR 2000 rotary controller from Behringer, believe it or not. This guy right here. And I will also be talking about a cheaper alternative to in-ears that I discovered while I was at AES. But in the meantime, we're going to come back to your demo in a little bit. If you want to leave comments, questions, concerns, or snarky comments for Britton on the website, you can go to the Crosstalk videos at gearwire.com and leave your comments and enter discussion with the various people on there. We're very happy about the last Crosstalk. We had more comments than we've had on any other Crosstalk before. And I'm glad that everybody participated and that there was much name-calling to be had. It was fun. So we'll be back with more Crosstalk in a little bit in episode 37 on gearwire.com.